Good evening. Going to call to order this Wednesday evening, June 21st meeting of the Carson City Airport Authority. Danielle, if we can have a roll call and determination of a quorum, please.
Chairperson Golden.
Here.
Vice Chair Pulitz.
Here.
Treasurer Rogers.
Here.
Member Horton.
Here.
Member Hamilton.
Here.
Member Hutter.
Here.
Member Norvell.
Here.
A quorum is present.
Fantastic. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next matter of business is to approve the minutes of the past Airport Authority meetings. Anyone have any questions or comments regarding our minutes attached in the board packet? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the minutes of the past meetings of the Airport Authority. Do we have a second?
Second.
And we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We won't be modifying the agenda this evening. And being that I don't see any members of the public here, I don't see any public comment. Okay. Do we have the airport engineer on the phone? Okay.
Nadine, do you have us? Okay. Nadine, if you're ready for your report, we're ready for you.
Thanks. So the first on the list here, the snow removal equipment, no new update. We can still plan on that tentative delivery listed here for sometime in the fall, hopefully September. In terms of the aeronautical survey for nighttime approach project, we are a little bit closer to fine-tuning what we need for the grant application and everything that needs to be submitted to the FAA. Kind of related to that, we did, when I say we, Corey and I and our contact with the FAA, we coordinated this morning in terms of the grant application needed for the SRE building. And things are looking positive for that and moving forward with funding for that project. The nighttime approach project was somewhat dependent on what happened with the SRE building. So those two are moving along as we planned, and we should be seeing grant funding for both of those and subsequently construction as soon as possible, but we obviously don't have dates for that yet. If there's any questions, I am here to answer them on any of those projects.
If I may, one question, Nadine, Carl here on the nighttime approach. So from a what has actually been done standpoint, the survey, of course, is complete. Now we're truly talking about when we're going to start construction. Is that
yes,
correct?
The survey is complete. Yes. Yep. The survey is complete. The design is complete for installation of the PAPIs. And that portion of the project has been bid, and we have we had one bidder for that, and it was Titan Electrical. And so as things are moving, their bid appears to be responsive, and likely we will be awarding them the contract. It's just a matter of time working through the process with the FAA and getting that grant issued.
Excellent. But just from the general timing of these things, that would probably permit construction to begin roughly when?
I would say if any construction starts, it would be in this fall, and that would be possibly for the foundations of those light units. However, I do have a bit of preliminary information about lead times on the light units and control units themselves, that the lead times are a bit lengthy. So as far as completion goes, that's another story, but start could be this fall.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Any other questions for Nadine?
I just have one comment, if that's okay. Just a few days ago, we were looking at potentially not getting the SRE building funded because the bids came in high. So it was a scramble to get to where we're at today, and we have Nadine to thank for her hard work in making that happen. We're gonna. It looks like we're gonna receive funding for both the SRE building and the PAPI, and it didn't look like that not that long ago. And Nadine deserves that recognition. So thank you, Nadine, for all your hard work on that.
Thanks, Nadine.
Okay, we're going to move on to the consent agenda. Unless anyone wants to pull an item off the consent agenda for discussion, we might consider a motion to approve the consent agenda as submitted.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as submitted.
And we have a second? Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as submitted. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Consent agenda is passed. And now, the moment I've been waiting for, the heart of this evening's meeting. Discussion and possible action for election of fiscal year 24-25 officers. I think it should be 23-24 officers. Let me rephrase that. Discussion and possible action for election of fiscal year 23-24 CCAA officers, chair, vice chair, secretary, and treasurer. The statute requires every other year at this time of year that we nominate and elect a slate of officers, a chair, vice chair, and treasurer. I've sat in this role as chair 2 successive terms. It's time for somebody else to take the gavel and run the meetings and be the signer and take the responsibility and set the agendas. So I'm hoping that we have a proposed slate of officers. Maybe someone wants to do that. That would be our next step, but that kind of explains it. So we're looking for who's going to be chair, vice chair, and then treasurer for the next 2 years. And that would start effective July 1. Yes, Paul.
Historically, I've done a pretty good job at choosing the right people for the right job. And I've done extensive research, talking who can do what. And so I'm going to nominate Tim Pullitz as chairman, Harlan Norville as vice chairman, and John Rogers to continue on as treasurer secretary.
Fantastic. And if those gentlemen are able, willing, and ready to accept those positions, I just need a, nod of approval. Yep, and yep.
Yes?
Okay, we can have a vote on that. So,
I'll second that.
okay. So, would you like to make a motion, Paul?
Yeah, I'll make a motion. I make a motion that we,
So it's not really done by a motion. So you've taken nominations. Now you would, as chairman, you would close the nominations.
Okay.
And then you would just call for a vote on
We
the
can-
slate.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any other slates that would like to be nominated? That's what I'd like to do, Carl. Okay, seeing none, I would like to call for a vote so that our new chair, vice chair, and treasurer for the next 2 years, effective July 1, would be Tim Pulitz, Harlow Norvell, and John Rogers.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
that
sir.
would be Secretary Treasurer, both positions. right?
Okay,
Secretary Treasurer.
okay, fair enough. Thank you for the clarification, Harlow. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carries. Congratulations, gentlemen. Thank you very much for your willingness to serve, and a special thank you to John. This is a pretty heavy lift. Isn't this 3 in a row?
3 in a row, yeah.
Yeah,
Is it a sickness, possibly a sickness category?
okay.
So the changes take effect on July 1, because otherwise, if you make them effective earlier, then they expire on July 1, which makes no sense. So I understood your vote to specify that it would take effect on July 1.
Yep, that's correct. So between now and the end of the month, I'm still signing documents as needed. If we need to call a special meeting, I'll be that person. I'm hoping we can get through the rest of the month without one.
Well, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for your service to the airport and to Carson City, and it's been great to have you at the helm here during an exciting period.
Hey, thanks, Carl. Appreciate it.
I'd like to second that as well,
Thanks, Tim.
Michael, that I know all the work you put in and all the knowledge you brought to the board, and I appreciate it. And I'm proud to be able to continue on with some of your guidance. Thank
Okay.
you.
And I appreciate you,
And I-
Tim, when we discussed this 6 months ago at your house, willing to do it. Maybe you're a little reticent, but definitely willing. I appreciate it. And as I said in our last meeting, and I've mentioned this to members of the public too, and I speak for the entire airport authority here, each member, and I'm sure Steve can recollect back many decades, as I can, and Carl can, for certain. We have a phenomenal composition of members on this airport authority. It will not always be this way. It wasn't always this way. At one time, before you were with us, we had Stan, who was just, huge shoes to fill. And you've done a great job doing that. But the reality is, you got to make hay when the sun shines. And we have a very good brain trust here overseeing and guiding policy at the airport, and we should continue leveraging that and capitalizing upon it, while we're still here. So, yeah, Paul.
And I do want to thank Michael for your years of detailed service. I mean, each time when we come in here, you dig into all the details and know it really well, and have been an incredible leader for this group since I've been here. So I can't tell you how much I appreciate that.
Thank you for the compliment. I appreciate it.
And I want to throw my 2 cents, and it's been a pleasure serving with you, Michael. Really,
Likewise, John.
it really has.
Yeah.
And I'm really looking forward to working with Harlow as well. So we'll expect more of the same strong leadership going forward.
Well, on that note, I appreciate y'all, and let's move on to the airport manager's report.
Okay, for the airport manager's report, fuel sales were up this month over previous months. This year's busiest month so far. It is about 6% lower than the previous year. Let's see here. We held the airport open house. Approximately 1,000 people attended. It was a really good success. The event was a lot of fun, and the attendees were really happy with the new layout. We had a lot of positive comments about the parking arrangements and the layout in general of the open house. We learned a lot about planning it, and we are going to implement some changes which will probably result in a higher attendance next year. There were 2 first aid incidents, but we were prepared for that, and they were handled with no problems. So John and I have implemented some new treasury tools with the Nevada State Bank to better operate in line with the new finance and accounting policy. It's not fully implemented yet, but we just have a couple of things to finalize. It's just going to help us with accounting, kind of streamlining things. We're really happy that our current bank had a solution for us. This was something that was very important to us to implement, and we were able to find a solution, which is great. This final budget has been submitted to the state. I was having issues with mass emails to airport users, so I sought out a solution using MailChimp. Whenever you send out mass emails, a lot of the common big domains out there will block them if they don't meet certain criteria, which our emails did not meet that criteria. Now, using this new system, it will, and we'll be able to get the word out a lot better. A lot more people should actually be receiving the emails that I'm sending out. Our list also got a lot bigger, so with help from our clerical assistant in the office, we were able to kind of consolidate emails from airport users. Our list went from about 400 to about 650. So we're now reaching airport users more effectively than we were before. I wouldn't have been able to do that without her assistance with that, so that was really good. I received some complaints about outside storage around the airport, and they were valid complaints. I followed that up by sending out notices to ground lease holders on the airfield, and they in turn reached out to their tenants, and the airport has seen a significant improvement in outside storage. I did receive some requests to maintain some outside storage, most of which were granted because they were not a problem for the airport. They weren't unsightly or a problem to aviation traffic. There were some pretty big issues, though, that were cleaned up, primarily outside storage that interfered with access to taxiways and a federally funded pavement, and that was all cleaned up, which is great. Assembly Bill 140 was signed into law. That law made Juneteenth formally recognized as a holiday in the state of Nevada. As a part of that law, it does require all government entities to comply with the holiday. So that means that the airport staff will have an additional holiday on June 19th every year moving forward. That did actually impact this meeting. I found out about it on Thursday morning, but I did successfully publish the agenda Thursday morning prior to 9 o'clock, where that would normally have been published Friday morning. Luckily, we were prepared to publish that, so it wasn't a problem. The new holiday does not replace any other existing holiday, which has normally been the standard, and that's because this is a federally recognized holiday as well, and that law was passed in 2021, I believe. So I'm working on a lease assignment and a lease amendment that I wanted to help the airport users get that on this agenda. We did not make this agenda. All the requirements were not met. But I'm working with them to get that done as quickly as possible. I may request a special meeting to get these items passed if we get the data finalized. If it falls too close to the next meeting, we won't worry about calling a special meeting, but we're actively working on it right now, so this could potentially happen fairly soon.
Corey?
Yeah.
Just a matter of suggestion. Being that we have like 10 days left this month, and being that immediately at the end of the month we move into a holiday period with 4th of July, if we don't have the meeting this month, we might as well push it to July, the July regularly scheduled meeting.
Okay. So
that would be July 18th.
We would need to publish an agenda 3 days prior to the meeting. So if we can't put it together by Tuesday, the 27th, it'll essentially be pushed back.
Yeah, I mean, you might as well, because I'm sure there'll be people traveling for 4th of July
Mm-hmm.
and people out of town. I don't want to speak for anyone on the airport authority, but I would guess there'll be people gone, and like I said, holiday, middle of the week.
We might be able to achieve that because their target was this meeting, so we're pretty well into it. It might be possible, but I'll let you know.
Okay, cool.
All right. There's a new party interested in Through the Fence at the airport. This is separate from anything else that I've seen. So I will be working with them on this, and I've started that process with them. I don't have any more details to add to that right now, but it looks like a very clear-cut, straightforward Through the Fence application. Go ahead.
May I add the detail to it? Not without disclosing who it is. Yeah.
Maybe.
I can only say that I started working on this, and then it went over to Corey. And as Corey said, it's not only clean cut, it meets the Title 19 requirements of Through the Fence. So it's not controversial. We don't have to change Title 19 necessarily.
Yeah, the only reason we need to keep it confidential is they asked us to because they haven't finalized the arrangements for the purchase of the land.
Right. Yeah, I'm not saying who it is. So.
That's actually a different one. It's actually not the same.
It's a different one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll talk to you about it later. I'll talk to you about it later, Steve.
But I did spend some time on that this month, and I wanted to include that because there's a bunch of interest in development at this airport and Through the Fence and on land development, and we're going to see more and more of this. And that one should be pretty quick, so we'll see that soon.
Question, how many areas do we have that can do
Through the Fence.
We've got Bravo, that whole taxiway. Are there any other areas where Through the Fence could be implemented?
The way it's set up and what it was originally set up is basically along Taxiway Charlie and Taxiway Bravo. And then Taxiway Delta was originally included in that, but the FAA may have problem with direct access to parallel taxiway. So there's quite a bit of land along the fence line that would still have the ability to request Through the Fence access, but none of them are guaranteed it.
That would be east of the fuel, of our current fuel station.
Correct.
So that is possible?
They could request it, but that would be tough to get through the FAA.
Yeah, we also looked at one out there once, Paul. Not only is it tough to get through the FAA, there is, shall we say, geographic challenges with the terrain. Big challenges. So nothing insurmountable, but it's more difficult than any of the land along the fence line at Bravo, for example. Much more difficult.
Yeah. There was an attempt to scam the airport out of $100,000. This was really interesting. This was an in-person attempt. Usually these sort of things happen over the phone or over the email. This happened in person. I immediately got the Carson City Sheriff's Department involved as soon as I realized that it was a scam. I worked with them very closely to get to the bottom of it. The reality of it actually ended up being really sad. The person that showed up to try to scam the airport was actually being scammed. They thought they were being truthful and honest, and they thought they were on top of something that was going to really help the airport. They were wrong, and they were actively being scammed. The Sheriff's Department, I think, had some background information on the scam operation, so they were able to help draw this out. And the airport didn't incur any sort of loss due to this, and the Sheriff's Department did a great job of helping us get that figured out and protect the airport. Thanks. It was an interesting day.
How did they try and scam us?
Should I get into the details? So the 2-minute version, they believed that they had access to funds in Kenya that were acquired by the CIA by acquiring those funds from scammers. And it was $183 million. And he wanted to, he was genuine. He wanted to help us fund these projects out at the airport, and he believed he had access to these funds. And all that we needed to do was cover the customs expenses and cover operating expenses for him to go to Kenya to get the funds. And he asked me to go with him. And that ended up totaling about $100,000. And so that was the position. And he was really being taken advantage of. He was someone who was an at-risk person for being taken advantage of, and he was definitely targeted, which is sad because he actually did incur loss. He did send money to these scammers, which is really unfortunate. But yeah, it sounded great. ADSB numbers total 2,590 operations for May, which was a little bit more than last month, which matches the fuel numbers. And that's all I've got.
Thank you, Corey. Any questions or comments for Corey? Okay, seeing none. Steve, do you have anything to report?
Just a couple of things. First of all, Corey's being very humble, and Curtis pegged it a minute ago. The way Corey handled the whole thing was masterful. Involved the police at the right time so they could listen to the pitch live, did all the right things. And so I think he deserves at least a gold star or something for that. The other items is Nadine, in her report, mentioned some things about the snow equipment storage building. And Nadine and I appeared in front of the Planning Commission because the Planning Commission had to give us a special use permit, which at some point we're going to figure out a solution where we don't have to go back to the Planning Commission to do things on the airport that the airport's designed for. But we needed a special use permit, and Carson City has an ordinance that says whenever you develop something on a piece of property, you need to extend the water main to the end of your property, you know, the water main out in the street to the very next property. And I think the logic is to make sure that development will continue in our community. The problem with that is that we're not allowed to spend airport money to build facilities for future private developments. We're only allowed to spend airport money under federal law for airport projects. So if we had had to extend the main to serve the snow removal equipment storage building, that might have been a different thing. We could probably argue to the FAA that's a legitimate expenditure, but can't do it for a private developer in the future. The city was really pretty nice about it. They had found a way to try and soften it as much as they can, so we only had it extended partway. But Nadine and I made the pitch that we just can't, we're just legally prohibited. So if you include that condition, it's tantamount to denying us building a garage for our new snowplow. And I was really impressed with the Planning Commission members. I've appeared before previous planning commissions and with mixed feelings over their expertise and their commitment to the job. I was really impressed with the expertise and the commitment of the Planning Commission members. The city has put in place, I think, a really sharp crew there. They worked through it, and ultimately, Hope Sullivan, who frequently comes to our rescue, suggested that the Planning Commission approve it and allow the Public Works Director to waive that requirement if we could satisfy him that we are legally prohibited from doing it. So that's what the action they took. I subsequently gave the Public Works Director the legal readout point by point of how the federal assurances in our grants prohibit that, and he did go ahead and waive that requirement. So that was a good outcome. The other thing I wanted to mention is during this last legislative session, the Nevada Airports Association, or Nevada Aviation Association, I think is the correct name, was trying to get some money into the Nevada Aviation Trust Fund. That's the fund that we created under Nevada law to help each of the airports fund their matching for federal grants. And they were successful in doing that. And so there's $1 million in each of the next 2 years that will go into the Aviation Trust Fund, which will then be split up among the airports based on the projects that we have going. The folks at NDOT right now, well, the law also creates a bigger panel of people to advise the director of NDOT in terms of expenditure of the funds. But they're working through the mechanics right now so they can get it set up and start going through the process of allocating those funds. So my expectation is that they will, as they have done in past years when they've gotten funding, they'll ask us for our ACIP and see what's going on, and then go forward with that. In my short communication with the folks at NDOT, one of them suggested to me that it may be time to see if there's a way to get the terminal building through, because this might provide us a source of some matching funds. And I don't know if that's realistic, but it's great that they're thinking those same thoughts that we are. That's all I got.
Okay, John, treasurer's report.
You have the numbers before you. Unless something really strange happens between now and the end of the month, this year will look very similar to the previous 2 years. We'll be a little over budget on revenue and a little under budget on expenses, and we'll have another strong year. While I have the microphone, I'd like to congratulate Corey on the way that he approached the open house. Open house was resurrected after a down period, and he got a lot of support from a lot of people in order to accomplish that without him having to do all the work, and I was very pleased to see that. So thank you for doing that.
Okay, report from any airport authority members. And again, we don't have any public comment because there's no members of the public here.
I have a,
Yes.
I have
Go
a
ahead,
few
Tim.
comments. Starting off, Paul Hamilton and I were both attended the open house, and I have to concur that it was planned professionally, where we had very sensible layouts. We had very safe layouts. We had a lot of cooperation with the sponsors. We had a lot of cooperation with the vendors. We learned a few things we'll do different next year, but as far as professionalism, it was top of the line. We're gonna, again, we need to revisit how to promote it, which I think is because of this trial and error. We're gonna do a better job of that next year. But I was really pleased. I was very, want to put a shout out to Mayor Lori Bagwell for coming out. She actually gave us an opening little speech, and then she hung out for about an hour and a half with the kids in the exhibits inside of Stellar Aviation's hangar. And that was a very good way for her to show support to what we're doing at our airport. So I'm very pleased with that. Thank you very much. I also want to just thank my fellow board members for the confidence you showed me to have me lead as chair for a couple years with Harlow and John in the next positions, and look forward to getting things done professionally and cordially. And lastly, I want to just say that I'm still very impressed with our airport management, our legal counsel. Everything we're doing right now makes me feel good about what we're doing. Everything I feel I can have confidence. I'm not saying we're perfect, but we are certainly professional, and we're certainly willing to put the time in. So I'm very pleased to be part of this organization. So thank you.
Fair enough. Thank you, Tim. Again, I don't see any members of the public out there for public comment. So any agenda items, Corey, that you want to highlight for the next meeting?
The lease assignment and the sublease that was mentioned earlier,
Mhm.
and these two grants are moving pretty quick here, so we could see something related. Maybe a bit awarding a bid or something along those lines. We'll probably see some things related to the grants soon. That's all I can think of right now.
Okay. On that note, we are adjourned.